And welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this podcast, we're going to continue talking about unemployment and the unemployment rate. On the last podcast, we said we highlighted this idea of the labor force, and we said the labor force was made up of all the people that were looking for work. And some of those people who were looking for work found work, and they were called employed, and some of them did not find work, and they were called unemployed. And then we took the unemployed people and we divided it by the total labor force, all the people that were looking for work, and that gave us the unemployment rate. And there were some interesting years here that I put over here, and I was going to talk about some of those on the last podcast, and I just didn't quite get to some of them. I mentioned some of them, 1929 and 2009, what the unemployment rates were. Oh, in 1944, that the unemployment rate was really low because we were fighting World War II, and there was a lot of production going on for the war effort. One other thing that I want to talk about here is beyond just thinking about the unemployment rate over time is what is called the labor force participation rate. The labor force participation rate. And I'm going to show you the formula. I'm not going to go through examples and do calculations of the labor force participation rate right now. I just want you to see conceptually what it means. So the labor force participation rate is you take all the people in the labor force, and remember that means that all the people who are both employed or unemployed. Okay, that means they unemployed. No, write that out. Unemployed. So the people who are employed or unemployed are the people that are part of the labor force. They're looking for work and they either found it or they didn't find it. I've said that a lot of times now. So all those people that are in the labor force looking for work, and you divide that by the total adult population. Now, the total adult population, that would include the people that are in the labor force that are looking for work, but it would also include people who are not looking for work, who are not currently searching for work. They're not looking for work for all kinds of reasons. They might not be looking for work because, maybe it's a stay-home mom or a stay-home dad and they're taking care of the kids and they're not looking to go to work. But there could also be some, and that would be fine. But economists really don't have anything to say about that in terms of good or bad. But there can also be situations that are problematic in here, which is when people want to be working, they were part of the labor force, and they gave up looking. They gave up looking for work, and they just the heck with it. I'm never going to find work, and they just kind of quit, and they pulled themselves out of the labor force, and that changes the labor force participation rate. So let's just look at a graph of this very quickly. So this graph, sorry, I'm not sure if you can see this down here on the bottom. So let me just pull this over. Just so I've clearly cited my source, so I hope you can see that. So I got this graph from the Economist magazine, and its source was the Bureau of Labor Statistics right down here. And this is the labor force participation rate for males ages 25 to 54, and it's broken down by education. Okay, so we look at 1965 through 2015, and we see that people with a bachelor's degree, if you have a college degree, your labor force participation rate has been going down over time, especially, 2000, I guess when you get in here in the 2000, maybe right around here, 2008, something like that, is where we really see some drop off in that labor force participation rate. But for people with a college education, it hasn't dropped too much. Labor force participation rate for people with a college degree was, maybe like 97 or something, and now it's down around maybe 94. Something like that. But look at people who only have some college, who did not finish their college degree. Labor force participation rate has dropped significantly. It was up in, maybe 90, 96, 97, something like that. And now it's down maybe around 80, 88 or something. And then with only a high school diploma, then those people really have gotten hit hard. since 1965, the labor force participation rate has dropped significantly from being, above 95% to below 85%, maybe 83% or something like that. So this has been particularly true in the since the 2008-2009 Great Recession, that we have seen labor force participation rate drop even further. But you can see that it's still part of a longer trend. So people, for one reason or the other, are leaving the job market as a percentage of the adult population. Now, again, that could be for a lot of good things. People want to be, stay home with their children. They want to, all kind of things that it might be. But we worry if it's the result of people giving up. People who did want to work, and now they just say, all right, they used to be looking for work, and if they were looking for work and they were searching, they were part of the labor force. And if they couldn't find work, they would be called unemployed. But now they've just pulled themselves out entirely, and they just say, we're not going to look for work anymore, and so they drop out of the labor force. And that's a big problem for a country, because that's going to cause their production, their gross domestic product, is going to decline, because they're going to have a large number of people who are not participating in productive endeavors. And so this kind of helps to this graph kind of helps to see the unemployment over time and what recessions do to unemployment. So I don't know how well you can see it, but these very light blue areas, at least they're light blue when I'm looking at it on the screen. Hopefully you can see a little better. These areas are recessions. They represent recessions. And so what we can see very clearly, and I'm ignoring right now this long-term unemployment rate. That's something I'm not worried about right now. This is just that normal unemployment rate that we calculated on a previous podcast. And what you can see is, and this really should not be surprising, it's pretty intuitive, is that when gross domestic product goes down during a recession, unemployment goes up. So let's just pick this recession right here. Okay, that was the recession in the early Reagan administration. And you can see that during that recession's right here, during that recession, from beginning to end, we see a significant increase in the unemployment rate, all the way up to 10.8%. Then, when the economy starts growing again, that's the area between the recessions, gross domestic product is going up, the unemployment rate is coming down. Then right here, we get into another recession, and then that causes unemployment to rise again. Then the economy begins growing and unemployment begins to fall. And then we go into a recession in 2001, and then the unemployment rate begins to rise again. And then we return to economic growth up through about 2007 or so, and then we fall into another recession. Unemployment rate goes up to 10% again. And we can see that the two big ones right here and right here are the two worst recessions in terms of being measured by unemployment. So a lot of people losing their jobs in the early 1980s, a lot of people losing their jobs in 2008. So that's just the unemployment rate over time, and highlighting this inverse relationship between gross domestic product and unemployment. Finally, two other things just to highlight over here, and they are what we call discouraged workers, because this unemployment rate that we calculate, it's not a perfect number. There are shortcomings to that calculation, and one of them is discouraged workers. And these are the individuals that I was talking about a little bit earlier when I was talking about the labor force participation rate. Individuals who want to work, but they have given up searching. Okay? They've given up searching, and so they do not get counted as unemployed. Okay, and that makes things look better than it is. The unemployment rate is going down because people are dropping out of the labor force, and that's really most people consider that to be a bad thing, and yet it makes the statistics look better. The unemployment rate is going down, and most people think that's good. So you have to make sure that you're looking not just at one statistic. Yes, the unemployment rate might be going up, but if it's because the labor force participation rate is going down, then that can very much be a negative. So just looking at unemployment statistics isn't enough. Also, you have to worry about the underemployed. The unemployment statistics don't capture this either. And these are workers who are working part-time, but they want to be full-time. Okay? They get counted, they don't get counted as unemployed. They get counted as employed. All right? So they want to be working more, but they can't, and so they are counted as employed, but they don't really feel that way. They want to be working more. So these are just two shortcomings when we think about the unemployment rate. So it's not a perfect number. You have to consider both the unemployment rate and the labor force participation rate. Both of them matter. Now, in fairness, in this video, and when we think about macroeconomics, the unemployment rate usually gets more attention. But the labor force participation rate, this number has gotten more attention recently as we have watched that labor force participation rate drop. We'll talk more about unemployment on another video. This has been Mr. Hagan. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next video.